Hey everyone, my name is Tegan, welcome back to TandeWrites, where today we're going to be wrapping up my reading for the month of December and a little recap on some stats for the entire year. So this month I read 9 books, and the only thing that's kind of notable about this month is I have this app called TBR Bookshelf, where I track my entire physical TBR, and I set myself a goal for the year to read 25 physical books, which is not many at all. And this month, to try and get to that goal, I read... well, it's only 4 physical books, but it's still a lot more than I usually do. So yeah, out of the 9 books, 4 were physical, there's 1 advanced copy, there are 2 library books, and there are 2 audiobook rereads. And I think this is the first month of the entire year where I've not had adventurous in my top moods. Like, we still have emotional, dark, and tense, but adventurous is not there at all. Did I read, no fun fantasy books this month? And yeah, this is probably the first time. Fantasy is still in my top 5 genres for the month, but it's not in the top 3. Usually I have YA, LGBT and fantasy, but now I have YA, contemporary and LGBT. We've really shaken things up this month. This is a big change for me. And I think pretty much every book I read this month except my audiobook rereads were rated 3 stars. Some were 2.5, some were a 3.5, some were just a 3, but I've not had a new favourite book this month, and I don't actually have a top read of the month either. Quite disappointing, actually. Okay, so let's go into the individual books after I find my graphic. Here are the books I read this month. So the first book I read this month was We Deserve Monuments by Jazz Hammonds. And it was a 3-star read for me. A lot of these books, I liked them, and that was it. Because I think the 3-star rating on Goodreads is liked it. And I like them. And some I liked more than others, but they're all pretty 3 stars. We Deserve Monuments is this girl and her parents move back to this rural town because her grandmother's dying, to kind of look after her grandmother in her final moments, and trying to uncover the reasons why there were so many tensions between the mother and the grandmother, and why the mother left and pretty much didn't come back in the first place. That is really all I remember. There's a sapphic relationship going on, very fun, very fun. There's this kind of restaurant-y bar club thing out in the middle of nowhere. It's the kind of place that you only find if you really need it, and those scenes are very sweet and enjoyable as well. I really remember nothing. This is a common theme for today. I don't remember anything. My first physical read of the month was Old Wounds. I picked this up off the Waterstones Buy One Get One Half Price table, and I've actually taken the sticker off, which is a good start for me. This is about 2 trans kids who are kind of running away from home to get to California so they can actually begin medically transitioning or having a safe transition with supportive people around them. And then somewhere along the road they get stuck again at this weird rural town where they start seeing things in the woods, and the town... How do you describe this? They find themselves stranded in the woods of rural Kentucky, and then they realise that that despite there being a real monster there, the true monsters are always transphobes. In extreme summary, as always. Enjoyed this one, read it... over 3 days. Because I remember desperately trying to finish reading this one before I got in my car and drove for a couple of hours. And then I packed books for this journey, and then I realised in the car that, I can't read. This is why I usually take the train places, so I can read and commute, rather than listening to The Black Parade on CD on repeat. Next up we have How to Make Friends with the Dark by Kathleen Glasgow, and this has been on my TBR for probably since it came out, but I've only been spurred into actually reading it recently because the author followed me on Twitter, and I don't know why. But again, looking at the summaries and synopses of her work, I believe that we probably have a lot of common themes, and that she'll be a wonderful comparison author for me one day. But it's the fact that she followed me on Twitter, and I thought, okay, I'm going to finally read this book. As if she's suddenly going to approach me and start quizzing me on her. As if that's how following people on Twitter works. But again, enjoyed it. This is a book about a girl whose mother suddenly dies, and she basically thinks she's an orphan. She's getting bounced around foster homes, and she's just trying to come to terms with grief and how your life can just change overnight. And a series of poor string of events that happen to her. My advanced copy of the month was Honeysuckle and Bone by Trisha Tobias, and this is about a girl who moves to Jamaica, which is her home country, but her mother never took her there for fear of the past. She moved there basically role-playing as her dead friend, and she takes on this position as a nanny at this rich people's house. And just trying to fit in, start a new life, and discover the secret of why her mother left Jamaica and never looked back. uncovering the past again is a common theme this month. I enjoyed this. This is again, I was gonna say this is again a case. I had this thing where sometimes the arcs I get from NetGalley are very well formatted. They look like finished ebooks. Sometimes they are very poorly formatted in a way where it disrupts my reading experience a lot. Unfortunately, Honeysuckle and Bone had a poorly formatted, or at least on my device. So reading experience slightly disrupted, but I enjoyed the book. I will have to write a little review coming up for this because again it's an advance copy. Next up we have Yellowface, and this is a book where I think it's either like exclusively 5-star reads or exclusively like 2-star reviews. I gave it 3 stars. But I will say this is also my first work, my first read of R.F. Kuang. I've not read The Poppy War, I've not read Babel, even though it is like literally right there taunting me every hour of the day. Because I think the other works I think I'll fall in love with. I'm so excited for Catabasis, even though I've not read any of her works in this genre. So this one's like, it's the standout one. I read it because it's quite short. I've heard it's very easy to like devour in 1 or 2 sittings, and I was trying to hit my physical TBR goal. So yeah, this is an author who has such an intense reputation for well done, in-depth, detailed research, and that definitely comes across in her works, but also I think Yellowface definitely benefits from her being part of the publishing industry. If you somehow don't know what Yellowface is about, it's about a white author whose kind of peer, her author friend, dies. She's Asian, by the way. So this white author steals this Asian girl's unpublished manuscript, passes it off as her own, and then hijinks ensue. It's so well researched, but anything that I think comes down to imagination, so like the characters or the plot, or I say a lot of things, it's like the research done but the imagination side is lacking. A lot of the characters are here, they exist to have like this one personality trait, and they come across to make like one point and then they disappear. So the characters, I think someone else referred to it, that the characters are just mouthpieces for specific settings. And then a lot of like the imaginative aspects of the book, such as like the characters, just like her interests, where she went to school, where she lives, are all like taken entirely from R.F. Kuang's life. So I think she is it's not really a self-insert character, but I think she only really draws on her own experience and her own research, and there are so many reviews that say this better than I am, and I'm still processing how I feel about it. It's like, I enjoyed it, but what actually did I enjoy? Then going into my audiobook rereads for the month, first up we have Loveless by Alice Oseman, which I gave 5 stars. I love it. I've had a review on this channel, probably I think it was 2019 where it came out, so if you want to scroll back and see me at age like 18, go see that. But I love Alice Oseman's very conversational prose. It mirrors my own writing style a lot, so I feel like a big sense of familiarity looking at it. And Loveless is a story about an asexual teenager basically realising that asexuality is a valid option in her life. And a lot of this storyline feels like it's taken directly out of my own life, so I'm incredibly biased and I love it. My other audiobook reread was The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. I gave it 4 stars. It's a book that basically explains what is happening to the side characters while the main characters in the storyline are going and having these like wonderful adventures. It's like, what's it like to be a normal person in a world where so many things are abnormal? It still, to me, mostly holds up. I've been rereading a lot of my old favourites recently, and some of them have not stood the test of time, but this one has. And it still makes the side characters, they are the main character in the story as it's about them, but we have like a little snippet at the start of each chapter saying what the heroes are up to, which are quite fun. But these characters still have exciting, interesting lives. I love all of them. It makes the mundane feel very interesting. Next up is Beholder, which is a book I again picked up for the length. This has been sitting, actually this I think came out recently, meaning last year, 2023. So reading something that's been added to my TBR recently, big day for me. I picked this up because I loved The Honeys and I loved Ryan's like horror works. I think, was Reverie by Ryan Lazala, but I don't actually know. But I loved The Honey so much, 5 stars, and I thought, yes, I would love to dip into this author's other horror works. And I don't even know where to begin explaining what this one is about, and it's just... Okay, we have a character who has this power where if he like looks at himself in the mirror, the mirror will like rewind time and show him the past, and that works for any reflective surface, it seems. One day he's at a party, someone else locks him in the bathroom, and when he escapes from the bathroom, everyone's dead, and then he runs away. And the guy who locked him in the bathroom finds him at some point, and they team up to try and solve the mystery of what's causing all these people to die. It's about interior design and how wallpaper is the true evil, and it somehow links. I like how it all wove together. There's a lot of like spider imagery in his, but I like how the mirror's powers and the wallpaper and the creature that lives in the mirror and how all these characters have somehow met like 15 years ago. It all wove together. I enjoyed it. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars. But again, didn't blow me away at the Honey Said this one. It's like, you got to suspend your disbelief a bit more to enjoy this one. But it's still fun. It's less heavy on the horror. It's slightly more kind of psychological. Again, about grief and what secrets your parents have run away from. And my final read of the month was Together We Rocked, which, very short, has been on my TBR for a while, mostly because I've seen every time Paper Fury posts some, like, those flat lays with all the Foresty books, and this one's always there. So I've had it on my radar for a while. I got it for Christmas. It's currently December 31st. I finished reading it yesterday. So personal best for me reading books on my physical TBR. It's about parents and grief again. Have a girl, her name is Will. Her mother mysteriously disappeared a year ago, and she spent every day since trying to work out what happened to her mother. She used to be best friends with this kid called Elwood, who, around the time of her mother's disappearance, they stopped being friends because Will accused Elwood's family of being involved. Elwood's family turns out to be this like Christian religious cult that he escapes from when he realises that he's about to be sacrificed to whoever their god is. And it's mostly, that happens at the very start. Pretty much the bulk of the book is just Elwood and Will on the run. They're still in the same town though, they're just like hiding at home and stuff. And going around trying to get clues to uncover what the actual purpose, to find out if Elwood actually is a sacrifice, to try and find out how Will's mother is involved. And again, all the secrets that these parents have been hiding. Enjoyed it. I think 3.5 stars, it's got good vibes. There's so many, this was a debut, and it has Ava Reid and it has Alison Saft, and it has the author of A Dark and Shallow Lies on it. This one has so much clout. And then I was reading the acknowledgements, and this is a book that, it was from Pitch Wars. This is like things that are, as an author, are exciting to me personally. And then all these big authors are calling her like the new queen of YA horror romance. And it does have romantic elements. There are some kisses near the end. It does have some horror elements. I think it's pretty light. I say light, it's a YA horror, so it's kind of got to be more appropriate for young adult audiences. But I enjoyed it. I think tentatively this would be my favourite read of the month, but I still only gave it 3.5 stars, so I don't think it's like earned top status, you know. So yeah, a pretty underwhelming reading month. Let's just wrap up my year stats very quickly at the end here. So my reading goal was 100 books. I ended up reading 105 or 106, I believe, and I have a couple that are in progress right now, which is going to make my January next year, or this year by the time you're watching it, look very good. Also, I always start my reading challenges off at 52 books, because for my lifestyle, 1 book a week, 52 weeks in a year, is very attainable. Then I inevitably hit that mid-year. I change it to 75, and then sometimes I change it to 100. My top 5 moves for the year were dark, mysterious, emotional, adventurous, and tense, because apparently I've been on a big emotional horror thing this year. And then at number 6 we have light-hearted, then reflective and hopeful, some like the nicer vibes. Top genres are young adult, which is not a genre, it's an age category, fantasy, LGBT, which is not a genre, it's just representation, horror, and contemporary. Then there's like the odd little romance, middle grade, thriller, mystery, historical down there. But the categories that dominate are fantasy and horror and contemporary. Then my little format pie chart's a lot more exciting this year. And this is where you already see that almost 50% of my reads are digital. And then pretty much all of my digital reads are advanced copies or library ebooks, because support your libraries. This year I think we have a lot more audiobooks, mostly because I've realised you can listen to, if you have Spotify, I was going to say Spotify Prime, Spotify Premium, you have like 15 hours free listening, and there are audiobooks on Spotify. Sorry, my camera's like lagging slightly. And then 24% are prints, because I force myself to read some physical books. But I also just really enjoy the convenience of digital and audio. Then most read authors. So tied for first place at 6 books are T. Kingfisher, Angie Sage and Holly Black. But I will say Angie Sage was entirely rereads of my childhood favourite books, which is the Septimus Heap series. Holly Black was... at least 3 of them were rereads because I reread the Cruel Prince trilogy and audiobook. So that means T. Kingfisher is my new fixation of the year with 6 entirely new to me books. And then other notable top authors, we have Nina LaCour, who was 4 books, and they were all new books to me. And I think V. Schwab, Leigh Bardugo, Frances Hudgens, the rest of them I'm pretty sure were like rereads in some way. So yeah, the top new authors to me are T. Kingfisher and Nina LaCour. My average rating is very reminiscent of December in general, at 3.62 stars, predominantly 3.5 and 4 stars. A couple I gave no rating because they were either like reads for competitions or they were arcs I did not finish. And what can I say? I mostly read what I liked this year in the shock twist of events. And also I'll give you this lovely, lovely graphic from my yearinbooks.com just to summarise some of my reading. So yeah, that is every book I read in December and a recap of my reading year. I'm looking forward to next year. I've got more of a plan going in, but I'm still very open, a very generic plan. Let me know in the comments below if you read any of the books I've read this month, what your reading goals are for 2025, and what your favourite reads of the year are. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!